Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're the Shavuot daf Tes Zayin. We are going to begin on Tes Zayin about Aleph, the second line from the top. Kol shul nasas b'chol elu b'chulu. So this brings us back to the Mishnah, the beginning of the second parak, which told us that when a person enters into the Azara, or for that matter into the Tosefas Azara, so that in itself you're going to be chayiv. We're going to see in which circumstance. However, as we saw mostly in yesterday's daf, it was necessary when it comes to any of these additions that you had to have, much like the days of Moshe Rabbeinu, a king, a navi. You had to consult Ur Batumim. You had to have permission by the great Sanhedrin of 71. And then we brought these shtei todos, these breads, not the meat, but bread of chametz. And we sang various psukim from Tehillim, such as Yoshev Seisel Yon, Mizmor Shir, Hashem Rabu Sarai, etc. Who based in Mahalchin, they would go V'shtei Todos Achrein V'chol Yisro Achrehen, and then the Mishnah told us that the inner breads were eaten and the outer ones were burnt, and that we saw is a machlokas depending on if the breads are side by side. So we say the inner one is one closest to the wall, and the outer one is the one which is further from the wall, or if it's one in front of the other, so then this is the inner, this is the outer. Okay. And then the Mishnah concluded, you're only chayiv if all of these things, apparently that's what it sounds like, all of these things. But we're going to see that's not everyone's opinion. So let's see the Gemara. So Idmar, Rav Huna Omer b'chol elu tanan, Rav Nachman Omer b'achs b'chol elu tanan. Is it that all of these things have to be done? Again, you have to have a king in the Sanhedrin or Matumim, etc., the Shtei Todos, or any of them in order to be chayiv. That's the machlokas. So Rav Huna Omer b'chol elu tanan, you need all of them. Ksaver kedusha rishon kitchel shaita. He holds that the kedusha in the Beis Hamikdash was at that time the kitchel asalavo, and therefore the kedusha doesn't change; it stayed there. The Azara zecher ba'almahu da'avad. Let's look in Rashi. Kloimar umi v'i mishum kiddush Azara dehave ba'yisheni. When it came to the in the second Beis Hamikdash, there was a problem because b'lo melech v'lo urim v'tumim. Ezra built the second Beis Hamikdash, but there was no king at the time, and there was also no Urim Tumim. That's one of the 5 things that was lacking in the second Beis Hamikdash. As the Gemara in Yomi says, Chamish Devarim Chasim Miktasheni, Eish Shechina Aaron Urim Tumim Baruch HaKodesh. So how was he able to do that? How was he able to build the second Beis Hamikdash if it was never he didn't have those things? Because Kedusha Rishona did David v'Shlomo lo batlo. That Kedusha, the first Beis Hamikdash, really never left. V'chutzrach ezul kadesh klum. He didn't have to do anything. Kloimer shehu loy hoisef klum barich roichev. He really didn't do anything. Umay de kadesh k'dichsev amida shtei toides l'zecha ba'alma avad. The whole purpose is l'zecha ba'alma, and therefore that's why, according to the Shita of Rav Huna, he says b'chol elu. That's what he says, all of these things, because it's all linked to how it was before. But the truth is, it was only zecha ba'alma to have to do all these things. Rav Nachman Omer b'achs b'chol elu. You have to do just any of them. Tanan. K'sav kedusha rishon kitchel shaita v'lo kitchel asad lo avoy. The Ezra kedushi kadosh. Taka, you did sanctify the Azara. Even if they're not Urim V'tumim. Okay. Eisve Rav Nachman. Kol shulo nasis b'chol elu. It says b'ferish, if you didn't do all of them. So today you have to insert bi'achas b'chol elu. You have to actually, change the language. Tashma. Abashol Omer. Shnei bitziin hoyu bahar mishcha. There were these 2 marshes, which is Rashi has the side that says v'tirenu ba'achu, like it talks about with Paro, he was standing by a marsh, Bahar Mishcha, at Har Zesim, Tachtoyin of El Yoina. There was a bottom one and an upper one, and it was like on a slant. There was a slope. One was above the other. Tachtoina niskadsha b'chol. The bottom one was sanctified by all of them. Says Rashi, Shemimei Bayis Rishon, in the time of the first Beis Hamikdash, Hechnisua v'chibruha le'ir adi chayma cheres. It was all connected through another wall. However, El Yoinu niskadsha b'chol elu. The top one was not. El oili goyla shlo b'melech or shlo b'urim. However, when it came to the oili goyla, says Rashi, shoysiv al ir, they added to the wall, so that was without a king and without the Urim. However, the bottom one was had a complete kedusha. Ami earth nechnasul l'sham. Amaratzim would enter there, and they would eat kadashim kalam there. Avuloi meiser sheni, they would not eat meiser sheni there. V'chaverim oichin sham kadashim kalam umeiser sheni. However, the chaverim would also eat meiser sheni there. El yoinim shlo haisa kedusha gemura. However, the top which did not have a kedusha gemura. Ami aretz hayu nechnasim sham v'oichin sham kadashim kalam avuloi meiser sheni. However, v'chaverim ein oichin sham lo kadashim kalam avuloi meiser sheni. They didn't eat anything there. Why didn't they sanctify it? You need all of those different things, and it doesn't exist. So why sanctify it? We said that we didn't, we couldn't. Why was it walled? Because it was vulnerable, it was open, and it was very easy to conquer. So that's the reason why they had these walls. Says Rashi, they would separate meiser. They would be very careful. So they were particular about this mitzvah because they thought that would help them become rich. Skipping a few lines in Rashi, this is holy, this is not holy. So lo hayu shaymin, Amaratzim will not listen. Lefi sha'imrim zu chayma v'zu chayma. They both have walls. Mali tachtoina mali el yaina. So they would not make a distinction between the bottom one and the top one. However, as we said, the chaverim would make that distinction. Fine. Says Rashi, again, Galuya v'arvasa makom shehi noicha chavesh, was here to be conquered. So where it's just tenoihi. This whole notion of kitcher rishayni, kitcher l'shaita, whether it's kitcher l'asad lavoi, is actually a machlokas tanoim. The Sanya Omer b'lezer shematik shahaya boina b'heichel. I heard when they were building in the days of Ezra, they were building the heichel. Also kilayim l'heichel. They made curtains for the heichel. The kilayim l'zaros, and curtains for the azara. El shaheichel boina b'chutz. The heichel was built on the outside. The zaros boina b'fnin the inside. So Rabbi Yeshua Shemaiti, I heard shemak riven al afal pi she'in base. Oichlin shemak riven, there would be makrav karbonos afal pi she'in bias. Oichlin kash gadashim afal pi she'in kalayim. There was no curtains. And they would eat gadashim kalam v'meiser shein afal pi she'in l'chayim. There was no wall. Because even though it's true they didn't have these things, but since the kedusha never left, it was okay to eat them. It must be again a machos tanoim. The fact that he says that must be the one doesn't hold like that. Maybe taka, it's good. The kedusha remains. Umar minus shamalei kaimer, mar minus shamalei kaimer. Each one is just basically saying what they heard. Look at Rashi. Aisim kilayim b'makim hachayma, when there used to be walls. Boinis kislei hachayma eitzel hakilayim v'chein hazaros. So it says boinin es hachayma b'chutz. They built walls on the outside. Shul yizenu einehim in a heichel, so people shouldn't look into the heichel. that we think the whole purpose is to maksha the zaros lahakriv carbon, so you can bring carbonos. The main based in carbon the kedusha rishon lebatullah. So these curtains allow the carbonos to be built, to be brought until the walls were built. So we end up saying, no, maybe not. That disagreeing. But each one said what they heard. Okay, this is also Megillah. So he says like this. Again, Dilma Kol Yalma Kitrisha Kitrisha Shad Kitrisha Lasal Avoy. Umar Masham Li Kaimer Masham Li Kaimer. V'chite Mekalaim Belezer one. Well, he said, why do you need the kalayim, right? If they're Kitrisha Lasal Avoy anyway, so then why do you need the curtains in order to be not to bring the carbonos? It's listening used to be Alma. Again, it was just for modesty, so that they wouldn't be able to look in. But the truth is, you didn't need the kalayim. You would be able to still be able to. You would still be able to eat the kudshim even without kalayim, and kadashim kalam, even though there's no walls around the city. El hani tanoi. This time, Rabbi Yishmael, Rabbi Yosi, lama manu chachamim es elu. Why did the chachamim count? Shekisholu bnei Goyla, when bnei Goyla went up, matzu elu, they found these. The kidshum, and they sanctified it. Avol Rishonos, but the original cities, Batlu, they nullified them. What is this referring to? So says Rashi, Shahayu Maikvas Chaimi Moshe Shuba Nun. They were already walled cities in the days of Yeshua. Waiting mitzvahs bati eri chayma, regarding the laws of a walled city. Vayahem limnois oid harbe shulmonim. And those other cities that may not have been counted. Mishabatul haaretz, from the time that the land was bottled. I'm Rabbi just those Shishim 60 cities. All these were fortified cities. Gavoa, they're very tall. That when he saw them, he sanctified them. Kitshum hashta hamrinan lakaman dolatzricha kedushi. I thought we didn't need to sanctify them. El matzu elu umonum, that we just counted them. Lo elu bilvad el kol shetal biyadcha mesaris miavosecha shemuk v'schami musa Yeshua ben Nun. Any city which was walled from the times of Yeshua ben Nun, even though not anymore, because kitshel asalavoi. So even though the walls aren't there anymore, but the fact is that they were there in the times of Yeshua ben Nun, so then all the dinim of a walled city applies. So Kashim Shmuel Rabbi Yosi, Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosi, Iboy Sema Tritanoi lived Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosi, Iboy Sema Chad Minayu Rabbi Lez Rabbi Yosi Yamra. The son of Rabbi Lez Rabbi Yosi Omer Asher Lo Chom. There's a wall of a Mishin Lo Achshav Ahaylo Kodim Achain. Even though there's no wall now, but there was in the time before, that counts because he holds Kitchel Sheted is Kitchel Asalavli. Question 11. Elohim Shisha Devarim Ditnan Shin Moisifan Al Ir Vel Azoros El Bahem. Okay, this is really the Mishnah. But again, 6 things: Melech, Navi, Urim, Tumim, Sanhedrin of 71, Shtei Todos, and Shir. Okay. I'm not sure why that's there, not before. Question TA10. Madur Rebbe Lezer Shoyu Bainim B'Mikdash Shoyu Oisim Kiloyim. Why did he have these curtains? So one answer is in order because the Havamina the lo kitchulas lavoi, and therefore because that you need to rebuild it. Or Taki holds that it is kiddush lasad lavoi, it is only mishum sniusa. That's TA10, and I got that one correct. That's good. TA10. So either because of that, or must be because Savar lo kitchelas lavoy. And those curtains allowed the carbon to be brought. Okay, that was the whole purpose, but no. Okay. Okay. Weiter. Let's continue on. Okay. Tes Zayin Medbeis. Nitma ba'azara. Let's say a person became tummy in the azara. Vin alma mimenu tuma b'chul, and he forgot that his tuma. So the Mishnah said as follows: if he became tummy in the azara and he forgot that he was tummy, he remembered that he was in the mikdash, or he remembered he was in the mikdash, that he forgot that he was in the mikdash, but he remembered that he was tummy. Or he forgot both. He forgot he was tummy and he forgot that he was in the mikdash. So if he bows down, or he waits enough time to bow down, or he takes a longer path, then he's chayiv. If he goes out right away to the fastest path, then he will, then he'll be potter. Okay, so let's see the Gemara. So Toma ba'azar menolan. How do we know? Says Rashi, Misha nitma ba'azara. Someone who became tummy in the azara, menolan de mechayiv. How do you know you're chayiv at all of yard? So we already know in the very beginning of this Masechta that if you remembered at the beginning and at the end, and you forgot in the middle when you entered, so then you have a chiv of karm of yared. Also, if you had yediyah b'tchila but not b'soy, but eventually you will have yediyah b'soy, so eventually you'll bring karm yared. But over here, it was that you became tummy in the mikdash itself. So what's, or in the azar itself? So Toma ba'azar menol. So Rabbi Lezer kosav echad aimer. One pasuk says that's Mishkan Hashem Timei. The kosav echad aimer kiyas mikdash Hashem Timei. So you mean in the Toma shebachutz. So one pasuk can be talking about Toma when you became tummy outside, then you went inside. So in the Toma shebifnim, and therefore the second was talking about you became tummy inside itself. So v'kroi miatri. So the question is, are these indeed extra psukim? I thought we already needed these psukim. Therefore, because of that, there's no extra pasuk to be able to learn out that there's a chiv carbon oil v'yorid if you become tummy in the azar, the sanya. Rabbi Lezer Omer im nemar mishkan lo nemar mikdash im nemar mikdash lo nemar mishkan. So this is a Gemara in the beginning of Erevin. So ilu nemar mishkan lo nemar mikdash. We only said the word mishkan. Hayisa omer al mishkan yehi chayev shahari meshuach b'shem mishcha. You would think maybe you're only chayev if you enter the Mishkan because it was anointed with Sheman Mishcha. So it had some high element standard. Now Mikdash lo yehi chayev, maybe you wouldn't be chayev if you entered into the Mikdash. V'im nemer Mikdash, whenever Mishkan, hayiso aimer al Mikdash yehi chayev, maybe in the Mishkan, Mikdash yehi chayev, shari kedushaso kedushas oilam. There, it's a kedusha which is forever. What does it mean, kedushas oilam? Says Rashi, Shena Harel Haisa Heter Bamois. From the time there was the time of the Beis HaMikdash, we no longer allowed to have private altars. Bamos were forbidden. So therefore, because of that, there's a higher level of sanctity of this place. So the question again is not extra. So maybe how do you know again that if you become tummy in the azara, there's a chiv oyev yared? So Belezer Hachikakash. So this is the question. Michti. Mishkan ikri mikdash. Mikdash ikri mishkan. Those words are actually interchangeable. So nichtav o idvi mikdash o idvi mishkan. Mishkan u mikdash lamli. Why do you use two different words? So shma minatarti. So this is again the beginning of Masechtas Erevin that these two words are interchangeable, and therefore the truth is you should remain consistent in the language, and therefore that is also an extra drash. So bishulma mikdash ikri mishkan dechsemenosati mishkanim esaycham. And so we clearly say that the mikdash is called the Mishkan. El Mishkan dikri mikdash menon ilim nechsev nasu hakahasim naisei hamikdash, that the kahatim they were carrying of the mikdash hub aringsiv. That's referring to the carrying of the aron, not referring to the mikdash. El mahachav yasli mikdash v'shachati b'saychav except kachal asher anima aroisacha is tamnis hamishkan. So again, we see that these words are interlocked. Okay. While you're tummy, then you're chayv a carbon. So that's only if you bow down toward the Kodesh Kodashim. If you bow down backwards, says Rashi, Mizrach to the east, that's not considered to be bowing down. It's only if you did it for the proper amount of time. So some read it based on the safe of the Mishnah. You're chayav only if you are there long enough that you could have bowed down. Mechlal, we can deduce tehishtachava gufa boy shehiyah, that hishtachava itself requires tarrying. You're gonna be chayav if you bow down even without any delay toward the Kodesh Kodashim. If you bow down toward the base of Mikdash toward the Kodesh Kodashim, you're chayav right away. And because you went chutz, and therefore it's kedei kedei shah. So hechidami hishtachava deisba shihia. What is this bowing which has time? Hechidami hishtachava doba shihia, which is the one bowing without. So the leisba shihia zukriya ba'almai. That's just like regular bowing with your knees. Deisba shihia pishia davar glayim, which is a much longer time frame where you have to actually spread out your arms and legs. The kamishir shihia. So how long is this? So please Rabbi Yitzchak bar Nachmeni v'chad di'ime, one of the days. Shumana Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi. V'yamar l'asam say it was the other way around. The Gemara says this in multiple places. V'yamar l'asam say it was Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi v'chad di'ama umana Rabbi Yitzchak bar Nachmeni. V'yamar l'asam say Rabbi Shimon bar Nachmeni chad oimer ki mamrei dahai psuka v'chad amri kimi v'yichru l'seifa. So what is that? Says Rashi. From the bowing down to the end. Royim beredis ha'esh v'kavod Hashem al habayis v'yichru apayim arza al haritzba v'yishtachav v'hoidois l'Hashem ki toiv ki olam chasdai. So it says the bowing down at the end of the pasuk. Fine. Tanabanan. Ki does Gemara brachos as well. Al apayim is on her face. Her face is on the ground. L'cheinu omer v'tikud b'sheva apayim aretz. Kriya al birkaim is bending with the knees. V'cheinu oimer michra al birkav, and it says on your knees. Hishtach v'zupishan ever raglayim v'cheinu oimer havo nava ani v'im b'chaveyachecha sh'asachol arza, which of course has to do with the dream of Yosef, and that means absolute, complete prostrating down onto the ground. Okay, let's see. Is there another question here? That was question. Test Zion, nothing there. TB17, no. TA11, Nicholas Beis Hamanoiga Derech Acharav, Adkan.